Hello, everyone. You're listening to JCSU Talks, broadcasting live from the Communication Arts Podcast Lab. Every week, we bring you exclusive interviews and content from students, faculty, and staff. Tune in every week on Apple Podcasts and YouTube to find out the great things happening within our campus community. Stay tuned for today's episode. Hi, Alexys. Thank you so much for joining us here on JCSU Talks. So happy to have you here. It's very exciting to know all the great things you're doing on campus, and we just want to dig through that and get to know you a little bit better. So my first question is, being from Charlotte, what is your fondest memory to attending Johnson C. Smith University?
That's a really good question. I would say my fondest memory for attending JCSU, even though I live in Charlotte, was definitely going to CIAA for the first time in 2019. Because every other time I went, I was just like a child looking in, but it's entirely different seeing the support that the whole school has for it, the school spirit. The whole city is literally blue and gold to represent the school, and it's an amazing experience. So that is definitely my favorite.
Okay, great. So, other than your family influence, what inspired you to attend JCSU?
Well, so growing up, I always went to PWIs for middle school. Even my preschool was a PWI, as well as my dance studio. And I kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm kind of tired of being the only person that looks like me where I am. And so for CIAA, when I was in high school, they had a high school day. And so they took seniors and juniors. And so when I was there, I got to see cheerleaders from other schools. I visit every table. And when I got to the JCSU table, it just seemed different. Like, the people that were there to represent, they talked to me like I was actually a person and not just necessarily trying to recruit me. They actually tried to get to know me. Mm-hmm. And that really did set the tone for me. And that was one of the key things that got me there.
Okay, all right. So that sounds good. So, what are some of the JCSU traditions that you and your family participate in, considering you had a great number of people coming here?
Definitely homecoming. Homecoming was always a thing. I actually remember the first one that I went to. I want to say I was about 5 years old, and I remember it because back then I was terrified of mascots. Mm-hmm. So when I seen Smitty, I was running away from him. Mm-hmm. But definitely homecoming is a huge tradition, as well as Bull Fest, especially the Saturday Fest when everyone comes out there. That's when my family comes here from out of the state. So those are two main things that we really participate in. Okay. And basketball, of course.
Of course. And so, what was that final factor that persuaded you to run for Miss JCSU, though?
Okay, so for that, I would definitely say COVID, because it got me out of my comfort zone a lot. Because back when I got here originally as a freshman, I was really introverted. I hated talking in front of people. I didn't really want to socialize, but being in COVID, I was kind of forced to, because, since everything was online, we kind of needed each other as students to help each other out. And so with that, I got to get to know a lot of people, and Ashley is one of my close friends, the 94th Miss JCSU, and I really loved how she did during her reign, and it inspired me a lot. So when I got to campus and I seen how we were kind of nervous with each other because we didn't really know each other, the new freshmen and the sophomores, because we never stepped foot here, and I really wanted to bring the school spirit back and kind of bridge that gap. So that was the final thing for me.
Okay, so being that you are Miss JCSU, how do you separate your personal life from your role as a university brand ambassador?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say for me, I've kind of been doing something like that ever since I was a freshman, because I've kind of always had some sort of ambassador role, because I do teach dance to children ages 4 to 8. And so starting that at 18, I kind of had to be a role model for them, and I kind of look at that as an ambassador. And the way that I do that is I implement self-care, and I implement Alexys time is what I call it. Mm-hmm. So I usually use my brand from 9 to 5, and then after that, I kind of use that as the time to myself. So that way I don't get really lost in my role, and I still have time for me.
Absolutely. So you're a top student in your program, on campus all around. So how do you manage your time between academics and your role as Miss JCSU? I
have 4 calendars. That is the number one thing. So I have a planner that I actually write in, have an agenda. I have the reminder app on the iPhone, and I have 2 calendars on my phone that I use for that. And I use the reminder again, and I actually put the timer for it too. I use my clock, so that's really what I do to stay organized. And I usually like to look at my schedule a week in advance, and I plan that out on a Sunday. And I've been doing that since I was a freshman, being really organized since I've been involved in a lot, because, I dance. I'm the vice president of the Foreign Language Honor Society. I'm in the American Marketing Association. I was in student government with you as a junior. Mm-hmm. I do a lot, so the calendars definitely is what saves me.
Right. So, how do you plan to incorporate your experience as Miss JCSU in your future career?
I would definitely say for Miss JCSU, one, being the ambassador like we just talked about is a way, and then second, using my platform for my voice to be heard, because over the summer of 2020, I was a bipartisan congressional intern for Congresswoman Adams, who is our congresswoman here in Charlotte, and for Congressman Walker in District 6. He just retired last year. And for that, it was a really interesting time because, we had COVID, we had George Floyd, there was a lot going on, and Congresswoman Fudge referred to it as a twin pandemic. And when I was interning during that time, I realized how important my voice is and how I want to be able to use it on a wider spectrum than just locally. So I actually want to be a lawyer and a congresswoman. So I really want to use those verbal skills and those networkings that I used.
Absolutely. So what is the lasting impression you plan to make as Miss JCSU? So what is like that final thing that you want people to remember?
I would say the last thing that I want people to remember is that you don't have to fit in a box. And that's the best part about being here at Smith in the world that we're in right now. You don't have to fit in the typical stereotypes that they like to box us in, because there's a lot of misconceptions with our role that you have to be like a pageant queen, you have to look a certain way. And I definitely broke those barriers because I am not super girly. I'm not into certain things. And it's really just about the role itself. It's more than just how you look. And with Miss JCSU, it's more than just when you have the outfit on. You have to carry that outside of it and how you carry yourself. So I really want them to know you don't have to be a certain way. You can still be yourself.
Right. Is there anything you would do differently as Miss JCSU?
The only thing I would do differently is plan my campaign earlier because I ran at the last minute. That's about it.
Okay. All right, so, considering it's campaign season, you have a few young ladies that are running for Miss JCSU. So what advice would you give any candidates running for Miss JCSU at this moment?
That's a great question because not only have I had them approach me, I've had candidates at other schools approach me, and I've actually endorsed a couple of class queens at other campuses, such as Dillard University, and I just did Mr. Winston-Salem right now. But I would say the key advice I would say is to actually try to get to know the students and don't really just try to talk them to get a vote. You actually want to hear what they have to say, get to know them, so that way they can build a bond with you and trust you.
Right, absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you for sitting down here on JCSU Talks. I learned so much more than I knew before, even though we're really close. And I just thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You have just listened to another episode of JCSU Talks. Don't forget to subscribe to our Apple Podcast and YouTube channel. Until our next episode, JCSU.